question number 1 is asking us to multiply a fraction by a mixed number. So very first thing we will need to do is convert that mixed number into a top-heavy fraction. So we've got 2 and 2/9 here. So if we think about it, each of those whole numbers is really like 9/9. So we've got 2 lots of them, and we're adding on another 2/9 in this question. So effectively what we're doing is we're multiplying the number on the front by the number at the bottom, and then adding that number on the top on again. Okay, so the 2 times 9 plus the 2, so 18 plus 2 would give us 20 over 9. So we'll go back to the original question now, we've got that sorted. So it's 5/12 multiplied by 2 and 2/9, then it's 20 over 9. Okay, at this point, saves a lot of effort later on, we'll cancel out any common factors. So 5 and 9 have got nothing in common. 20 and 12 both in the 4 times table, so 20 is 4 times 5, and 12 is 4 times 3. Okay, so now we can multiply these numbers. So 5 times the 5 on the top gives you 25, and 3 times 9 gives you 27. So we've already fully simplified this, but let's just double check. Yep, 25 and 27 have nothing in common, so that would be the question completed. Okay, regarding the marks, you would get 1 of the 2 marks for getting the 20 over 9, the mixed number converted properly, and a final mark for a fully simplified 25 over 27. Okay, so question number 2 is asking us to multiply out 2 brackets. So a binomial multiplying by another binomial. So we're going to do this by the double and split method. So we're going to split the first bracket, the 2x and the minus 5, and each of these parts is going to multiply by bracket 2, the 3x plus 1. Okay, so we multiply this out, we're going to have 2x times 3x gives you 6x squared, 2x times 1 would give you 2x, negative 5 times 3x would give you negative 15x, and negative 5 times 1 would give you negative 5. So let's tidy this up. We've got 6x squared, we've got a plus 2x and a minus 15x, that's going to be minus 13x, and then the minus 5. Okay, and that's your end question. Marks wise for this question, you would get a mark for multiplying out the brackets and a mark for correctly simplifying. If you did have time at the end of the exam, you could go back and double check it. Okay, so we pick an arbitrary value for x here. Let's just say in this case x is equal to 1. If you look at your original question, the bracket 2x minus 5 then would be 2 minus 5, so negative 3. And the second bracket would be 3 plus 1, which would be 4. So that gives you an answer of negative 12. And your final answer, you've got 6 lots of 1 squared, which would be 6, minus 13 lots of 1 would be minus 13, and take away your 5, which also gives you negative 12. Okay, question number 3 is asking us to change a quadratic or a trinomial into the completed square format. So the value we're most interested in is the coefficient of x, so the number in front of x, that's minus 14, and that's going to help us with the a value. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to half this number. So in the bracket then it's going to be x minus, well, half of 14 would be 7. Okay, so what we've done is we've condensed the first two terms, the x squared minus 14x, into this bracket. And the bracket will produce them, so x times x giving you the x squared, the x times the minus 7, and then it doubles to give you the minus 14x. But the bracket also produces a 7 squared term, so we need to take that back out. Okay, and just add on the 44 that was there before at the end. Okay, so all we're going to do now is tidy this up a bit. So x minus 7 squared, the 49 comes from there, and we'll add the 44 on. Okay, so that's going to be x minus 7 squared minus 5. Okay, marks wise, your 2 marks, 1 mark is for getting the bracket correct, and 1 mark is for getting the value on its own at the end. Okay, question number 4 is looking for a resultant vector 2u minus v. Dead simple here, multiply vector u by 2, and then we're going to just subtract vector v from it. So the good thing about vectors is the x, y and z components don't interact in any way whatsoever. So all we need to do here is exactly as I just said, we're going to multiply the top one by 2, so it's just going to be 2 lots of minus 2, and then add on the 0. Middle one, we're going to do the same, 2 lots of the 3, and add on the negative 4. And in the bottom one, 2 times the 5, and add on the 7. Okay, so 2 times minus 2, that would be minus 4. Add 0. 2 times 3 would be 6. Adding a negative is the same as taking away, so that'll be minus 4. And 2 times 5 is 10, and we're adding on 7. Okay, so just finish off. Negative 4 plus 0 is negative 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. And 10 plus 7 is 17. Okay, so that gives you a final answer of negative 4 to 17. Marks wise for this one, you get a mark for showing you knew to multiply the 2 to the u and then take away the v. And then you get a mark for getting the correct final answer. That's minus 4, 2 and 17. It is important that you do leave it in component format and do not turn it back into a coordinate. Okay, question number 5 is a triangle question. Okay, and what we're interested here is calculating the length of the line going from L to M, which we're going to call x. Okay, so what we know is that the sine of k is 0.4. I don't know what the size of the angle is, but I know that the sine of k is 0.4. I also know that the sine of L is 0.9. Okay, so if you look at this question, we've got the sine of an angle and the side across from it. And we've got the sine of the angle, and we're interested in the line across from it here. So if we go to our sine rule on your formula sheet, so we've got it up on the page here in the red and boldened border, that means that our side x divided by the sine of its angle, which is a 0.4, must give you exactly the same answer as the 18 divided by the sine of its angle, the 0.9. Okay, so we move things about. That means it's x is 18 times 0.4 over the 0.9. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the fraction top and bottom by 10 here. That means that it's going to get rid of the decimals for me. So 18 over 4 divided by 9. Okay, so 18 divided by 9 gives you 2, and 2 times 4 would give you 8. And I'm going to put my units back in here, centimetres. Okay, so mark wise for this question, you would get a mark for attempting the sine rule. Okay, we'd get a mark for having everything in the correct place, okay, when it's moved across, and you'd have a correct mark for the 8 centimetres. Okay, so in question number 6 we're presented with a scatter graph, but it's actually a straight line question. So for any straight line, what we require is 2 points to calculate gradient, and then also allow us to calculate the y-intercept. So clearly we've got the point A here at 5, 200, and similarly we have got the point B at 25, 500. Okay, so we work out gradient. M is the vertical divided by the horizontal. So that's calculated here by the change in your y coordinate, y2 minus y1, over the change in your x coordinate, x2 minus x1. So that would be 500 minus 200 on the top, and 25 minus 5 on the bottom, giving you 300 over 20, which gives us 15. Okay, so we put that into our y minus b equals m bracket x minus a formula. Okay, so that's y minus, I'm going to use the first coordinate, 5, 200 here, so that's be y minus 200 is 15x minus 5. Okay, so multiply this out, that'll give you y minus 200 is 15x minus 75, or y is 15x plus 125. Okay, if we have a look in our question though, our y and x axis are actually changed to be f and c respectively, so it's actually c is 15f plus 125. Okay, and that's part A. Okay, part B then, it gives us a value for f and asks us to calculate the value for c. So all we're going to do here is we're going to substitute in the fact that f is 40 here. So that's 15 times 40 plus your 125. So that's going to give you 600 plus 125, giving you an answer of 725. And the calories are measured here. So we'll just put calories. Okay, so that's your two answers. Okay, so the first question is worth 3 marks. Okay, so your marks would be 1 for getting gradient, 1 for substituting in your formula, and 1 for getting it in the format C equals m times f plus your intercept value. And for part 2, dead simple, 1 mark for getting the correct answer. Okay, question number 7 presents a parabola question. Okay, so we're given the format that it's y is a times x squared, and we're given the coordinate minus 3, 45. So what we know then is that when y is 45, x takes the value negative 3. So if we put that into our formula, what we can see then is that 45, it becomes a times 9, or that a takes the value 5. Okay, so we would get 1 mark in this question for substituting our values into our formula, and we get 1 mark for correctly getting the final answer, the 5. Okay, so question number 8 presents us with an addition of surds. So we've got root 40 plus 4 root 10 plus root 90. So what we'll find in these questions is if you're given multiple terms, at least some of them must condense to have the same surd part. Okay, so what I'm expecting here is, since root 10 is as simple as that's going to go, that either both root 40 and root 90 go down to something root 10, or at least one of them does and leaves an odd one out. Okay, so in this case, we'll have a look at this then. So the square root of 40 then down to the square root of 4 times the square root of 10. Okay, 4 root 10 is as easy as that one can be. And root 90, again, we can go down to square root 9, square root 10. So we'll tidy this up a little bit. So square root of 4 is 2, so that's going to be 2 root 10 plus 4 root 10 plus 3 root 10. And we've got 2 plus 4 plus 3, so that's 6, 9 root 10s. Okay, so 3 marks for this question. So we've got a mark for simplifying the root 40, we've got a mark for simplifying the root 90, and we've got a final mark for putting it all together to get your 9 root 10 here. Question number 9 is a reverse percentage question. So what it's stating here is that 480,000 tickets were sold, and that represents 80% of the available tickets. So what we know then is that 80% gives 480,000. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to find what 1% is. Okay, so that would just be 480,000 divided by 80, and then work it back up to 100%, the original value, by just taking that 480,000, which we divided by 80, and then times it by 100,000. Okay, and what we'll find then is that gives you the answer 600,000. Okay, so 3 marks for this question. So we'd get 1 mark for stating that the 80% is equivalent to 480,000. We'd get a second mark for showing that we were calculating a valid technique. So for instance, find the... Okay, so question number 10 is a trigonometric graph question. So we're presented with a graph here, and we're told the equation is that y equals a sine bracket x plus b. Right, so having a look at it, a. So a is your amplitude. Okay, so remember, amplitude is just the top to the bottom and then divide by 2. So in our case, we've got it going from minus 2 all the way up to 3. So that would be a distance of 5. And then if we divide that by 2, that's going to give us 2.5. So A is the value 2.5. Okay, B is your phase angle. So the sine graph should start at 0. But if you have a look at your diagram here, it's actually crossing the axis at the point 40. So it's actually moved 40 to the right. Okay, so the phase angle works the opposite direction to what you would expect. So if it moves 40 to the right, that actually means that B is negative 40. Okay, so what we know then is that A would be 2.5 and B is negative 40 degrees. Okay, so 2 marks for this question. Really, really simple. 1 mark for A, 1 mark for B. Question number 11 presents us with an equation and asks us to rearrange it so we can find the gradient in the line. So remember, the easiest way to get the equation of the straight line for a gradient is y equals mx plus c. So if we take what we've got, 4x plus 3y equals 12, what we want to do is rearrange it to look like that. So let's move everything apart from y to the other side. So minus 4x plus 12. So that means that y is minus 4 thirds x plus 4. So the gradient then is minus 4 thirds. Okay, for part B, we're looking to find the coordinates of the point where it cuts the x-axis. Well, it'll cut the x-axis when y is equal to 0. So we'll go back to our formula. Let's go back to the original formula here. So we've got that 4x plus 3y equals 12. Well, if y is 0, that means that 4x is equal to 12, or that x is equal to 3. So it cuts the axis at the point 3, 0. Okay, so marks wise for this question, we get 2 marks for the first part. So we'll get a mark for rearranging the equation. and a mark for actually specifically picking out the gradient. And for the second one, we'll get a mark for substituting the fact that y is equal to 0 in, and we'll get a mark for getting the correct coordinate, that it's 3, 0. Question number 12 is a question involving a circle, most likely going to be a Pythagoras question. So what we know in the question and what's written down is the radius of the circle is 15 centimetres. Okay, A is the midpoint of the chord PQ, so that means it cuts it in half, and the length of AB is 27. Okay, so I know that this whole line here is 27. Well, I know that from C to B is a radius, so that's 15. So I know this part here would be 12. Okay, I also know that if I join C to P, okay, using a straight line, that would be a radius, so that would be 15. Okay, and I also know that since the midpoint is getting cut here by a radius, that it would cut there at right angles. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly redraw the triangle away from the diagram here. So what I know is that side there is 12, this side is 15, and this is a right angle. So what we're interested in, we're going to try to work out the length of PQ. So first of all, I'm going to work out the length of this line that I'm going to call x. Right, so Pythagoras, x squared then would be 15 squared, and it's going to be a takeaway, 12 squared. So that's going to be 225, take away our 144. Okay, so that's going to give us 81. Okay, so the square root then of 81 would be 9. So what we know is that x is 9 centimetres, so that means that PQ would just be 2 lots of those 9s, so 18 centimetres. Right, so regarding the marks for the question then, we'd get a mark for the 12, we'd get a mark for attempting Pythagoras, we'd get a mark for getting the 9, the calculation there, and then we get the final mark for actually working out the length of PQ by doubling that. Okay, so question 13 presents us with a parabola question. So the first thing is asking me, when will the rocket first be at a height of 60 metres? Well, the formula then is that 16t minus t squared is the height, so that would be the 60. Okay, so we rearrange that, it's minus t squared plus 16t minus 60 is equal to 0, so multiply through by negative, that's t squared minus 16t plus 60 equals 0. So factorising that into two brackets, that's going to be t and t. Two numbers that multiply together to give you 16, add together to give you minus 16 would be minus 6 and minus 10. So that means that t is either 6 or 10, so t must be 6. Okay, part 2 of the question is asking about the maximum that's going to happen for this particular graph and if it can indeed be 70. So what we'll do is we'll look at the roots first. So what we know is that 16t minus t squared would equal 0 at the roots. So we take out a common factor of t, that would be 16 minus t. Okay, so that means that either t is 0 or t is 16. Right, that being the case then, that means you have an axis of symmetry when x is equal to 8. Okay, obviously in this case x being your t value, so it's when t is equal to 8. So we put that in your formula. Okay, so 16 times 8 minus 8 squared. That's going to give you 16 eighths, well that's going to be 80 plus 4 eighths, so it's 128. Minus 64 gives you 64. So will the rocket reach? Okay, no, the maximum is 64 metres. Okay, and that's the question complete. Okay, so the first part of the question is worth 4 marks. So that would be 1 mark for setting up the equation, 1 mark for rearranging it, 1 mark for getting our factors, and then 1 mark for correctly selecting the 6 as being the primary one. The second one's out of 3, so we would have 1 mark for getting the roots, 1 mark for getting the maximum, and then 1 mark for making the correct conclusion that it could not happen.